All right, hey everyone. Hello, greetings, welcome. How you doing? This is the first video that I'm going to be recording for what for me is a new class, kind of a reboot. This is 211's Com 211 Survey of Rhetorical Studies. I actually, when I first took the job at UNLV many years ago, back in 2004, this was one of the first classes I taught. But I taught it as a large lecture. There's a big theater on campus, and I used to go talk in front of like over 100 students doing this exact class. But we stopped doing that, and then it kind of sat on the books for a while. And more recently, we've kind of reanimated this course, and I was in on the discussions of that kind of reboot. So now I'm actually teaching my own version of the class that I more recently helped shape behind the scenes, but now I'm doing it for real myself. However, there's kind of stipulations, I guess, in terms of like this particular instance of this course. So this is a summer version, so that means it's 5 weeks, summer 3. So obviously shortened right there. The other part of this is that I was supposed to be teaching a different class, a second section of my usual rhetorical tradition class, 409. But the numbers were really bad, and so we just got rid of one of those sections and then tried to open up a second section of this survey class. And as of me recording this, I'm actually recording this on July 3rd because I'm heading out of town tomorrow. So I want to kind of get a lot of this stuff done in front. I think there's only about 5 or 6 students enrolled in this class. So this is a new class for me, and it's also not a class that's going to make in terms of like my pay. So we teach classes in the summer for extra pay largely. There's a number of students that you need to reach in order to get your full pay. And then below that you get prorated. I think the number is somewhere around a dozen or so. So we're quite a bit below the full pay amount. And so this for me is an interesting experience of teaching a class with very few students for very little money for a short amount of time. And so the way that I am trying to like walk this little bit of a tightrope is to do, for me, a kind of simplified, kind of stripped down version of the survey class, with the focus being on not a ton of work and not a ton of reading and not a ton of like assignments, but the ones that we are actually engaging are going to be rich and evocative, and I think you are still going to get a good grounding in these ideas, right? So I'll just start working through the syllabus here. I've printed it off, my own copy. It's at the top of our Canvas page. You know, the point of this course is to kind of introduce and acquaint students, maybe in the first or second year of their studies, to this thing called rhetoric. What are these ideas? What are these concepts? What are we talking about when we're talking about rhetoric? And so this is I think the first sort of like serious engagement that students in our program get with rhetoric, right? And so it's meant to kind of set up some of the later rhetoric classes that we offer in the course. And then this other one that I'm doing, the Rhetorical Tradition 409, is the like advanced upper division version of this class. And so in that class, students actually read Aristotle. They actually read Plato, not in the original Greek, but they read translations of the original works. We try to get as close to the kind of the raw ideas themselves in that more advanced class. In this class, it's more about kind of summaries and synthesized treatments of more technical and more advanced kind of approaches to some of these ideas. Rhetoric's been around since 500 BC in terms of as a field of study, and so there's oceans of information, writings, publications, text. It's daunting just how much is out there, right? And so we are just tasting the tip of the iceberg here, the tip of the tip. And so that's a challenge. But I think that we can still get you to a pretty decent place in terms of like, what is rhetoric? Where do we see it? What is it about? What does it involve? Why is it important? Okay, that's how I see my job here over the 5 weeks that we're going to be together. So if you look in the first page of the syllabus, the course format, you see it's structured around these 5 weeks. Each week will be its own kind of module or unit. And so we're kind of breaking rhetoric down into these kind of 5 ways of thinking about what is rhetoric, right? And it's somewhat historical. It moves somewhat from like ancient ideas to more more modern, and then more contemporary ideas. And so in week 5, we're talking about rhetoric as virtuality. And that's really trying to kind of get a sense of what's happening like now, right? Whereas the first week, rhetoric as persuasion and argumentation, now we're starting off dealing with like Aristotle's ideas and some of the most kind of foundational basic ideas about rhetoric. So we're going to try to get good there, and then we're going to proceed next. The second week is about symbolic action identification. There we're jumping into the 20th century and the work of Kenneth Burke largely. Public confrontation is more of like latter half of the 20th century, social movements, public dissent, confrontation, that kind of stuff. And then cultural power is now more like in the last few decades or so in terms of ideology, power, mythology, the way that rhetoric is a kind of force that moves through culture and creates meanings and creates behaviors and creates power dynamics, and or at least kind of fosters these things. And so we're trying to get both a broad and kind of succinct and punchy, kind of pithy take on some of the big ideas in rhetoric. That's the tightrope that I'm going to be walking, is to try to give you as clean and simplified a version of more kind of complex ideas as possible, while also feeling good about the exposure that you're getting to the kind of the abundance of ideas about rhetoric that exist, right? And so I'm pretty pleased with what I've come up with here in terms of kind of the breakdown and the readings and so on. But like I said, I haven't taught this in about 15 or so years, and so we'll see. I also haven't taught a 200 level class for quite some time, and so I am being very mindful of the amount or the lack of maybe exposure to rhetoric that many of you have, and to try to not kind of overshoot in terms of like the technical detail of the readings and so on. So Stephanie Willis, who has been teaching this class for some time, she shared her syllabus with me, and she discovered this online textbook called the Untextbook by a rhetoric scholar. I think he's in Minnesota, Dr. Attila Halsby. I actually had dinner with him at a conference a number of years ago. Lovely fella, smart guy, and he put together this textbook. It's an online textbook, and it's useful for that kind of summary synthesis thing that I was talking about. And so I have been linking some of his chapters to sort of start off the week. Each week there's, let's see, I think week 1, 2, and then 4 and 5. There's really only one week that we don't start the week with a chapter by Halsby. And so the idea is like he's going to kind of help us with a broad synthesis of the ideas and concepts that pertain to each of these weekly topics or themes, and then we're going to read like usually just one more thing. That's hard to do, boy. One single essay that kind of captures these other ideas. It's tough stuff, but I think I've come up with some pretty good, engaging readings that help further illustrate some of the kind of core ideas that are swirling in each week. And so that's the idea. And then in terms of assignments on the second page of the syllabus, I decided to just go with one basic type of assignment repeated 5 times. So you're going to do like a 3-page paper each week. That's it. I'm calling these discovery papers, and the point is, the thought is, okay, maybe these students aren't super nuanced in their kind of thinking about rhetoric and what is it and where is it. And so the discovery papers are basically, okay, we've spent a few days now in this week learning about rhetoric as persuasion, argumentation, or as symbolic action, or as public confrontation, or whatever. Now, the papers are going to ask you to kind of go out into the wild, out into kind of the social world that we inhabit, and see it, spot it, talk about it, examine it, find examples of the thing we're talking about, engage these examples, analyze these examples. that's about what I can say right now because I haven't actually created these things. Like I said, this is a new class, so I'm still doing some creating. But that's the thinking for each of these papers. You're going to do that 5 different times, and that's it. That's it. No tests, no quizzes, no fancy this or that. It's just you're going to write about 15 pages over the course of 5 weeks, but only about 3 pages a week. I think that's pretty manageable. And the whole point is for you to be taking the concepts that you're learning about each week and then animating them in terms of your own ability to recognize, spot, engage, challenge, right? And to do that in a kind of succinct and pithy way. So these 3 pages are going to need to be, good quality pages, thoughtful pages, clean pages, where you're really trying to sort of work through these ideas. And that's the basic gist of this class. 5 weeks of learning about rhetoric, doing a kind of not a deep dive, a kind of a shallow dive, but hopefully a representative and decent shallow dive. So the structure is very symmetrical and simple. That's the kind of my approach for this class, is try to keep it simple. So it's just every Sunday, by the end of Sunday, so the weekends obviously on Sunday. At that point you'll have had 6+ days to absorb the information, to do the readings, to watch the videos, and then to write 3 pages. And then you have until that Sunday to submit those pages. So 11:59 p.m. each Sunday, and then the very next day we start the next one, and then you have that week to write 3 more pages. And so I feel like that's pretty manageable to write 3 pages a week. The goal then will be to work through the materials, the readings and the lecture videos as quickly as you can so that you can get to those pages. And then if you need to reach out to me at any point to ask me some questions or run ideas by me or get some clarification, please do, by the way. I'm not some absent figure, even though this is all remote and we're all over the place. I'm here for you, all right? So do please reach out. Do please let me know if you have questions. I love talking with students and trying to, explain ideas and, work through examples together. So by all means, please reach out if you have any questions about the assignments or uncertainties or confusions. I'm here to help. I don't want to take up too much more time here. About 15 minutes is all I need. So just working through here, the discovery papers. I do have a note on AI and ChatGPT. I guess this is now something that we need to build into our syllabi. So just to let you know, I failed some students back in spring on their final tests. The ChatGPT interface came out mid-semester, and it started to kind of gather steam, and I actually started to notice pretty obvious examples of it in my final exam. And I did fail students. And why? Well, it's cheating. It's basically feeding something into some other source, getting information back, and then just kind of dumping it in these dialog boxes on the test. That's not something that we're allowed to do. That is plagiarism, or that is cheating. That is using works and ideas and thoughts and sources and making connections that you didn't make, right? And so that's not okay. We can have conversations about ways of using ChatGPT, and I can even show you because I've started using it in my own writing, in my own research. I think of it as a kind of an unreliable research assistant. Like if just yesterday I was working on something and I was like, what's the difference between composition and design? Composition, design. So I just went into ChatGPT. What are the distinctions between composition and design? And it spits out this response that makes good sense. But every time I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, this could all also be wrong, right? And so you can get something from it, but you also need to know that it could be completely made up, or it could be partially made up. It could be rooted in complete falsehoods. This thing does not have consciousness. It just puts patterns together and goes with probabilities. So I don't know if you're using these things on your own, but please, 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 it's not even a request, it's a demand. You may not use these on your test. You may not use these in your papers. Your papers, your work must be your own thoughts, your own words. And to the extent that you do not use your own thoughts and words and you draw on other sources, you cite those sources, right? So when you go into a book or an article or whatever, and you get an idea or you get a quote, then you attribute that. The basic spirit of that is pretty simple, right? If you've ever created something or built something or made something, and then someone else goes, oh, that's cool, I like that, I'm going to use that. Or if you create a joke and someone steals your joke, right? It's like, where's the props? You give me some love here, right? That's the basic spirit of what we're doing here. you don't impress anyone if you just take someone's ideas and pass them off as your own. You just look shady, right? So it actually helps your ethos as a writer if you acknowledge, I got this here, I got this here, I got this here, thanks to that source, right? Even on the first page of the syllabus, I thank Attila Halsby for putting together this textbook. So when in doubt, attribute, right? Share the love. Say thank you. That's the basic gist of this. So AI, ChatGPT, caution, avoid. Do not let that stuff enter into our like formal assignments. Tinker around with it on your own, play around with it by all means. It's fascinating, but it's not a use for your assignments, for your work. There we go. All right, so the next page is the schedule. I'm already going a little long here, so it's pretty simple. 5 weeks, the same basic pattern each week. And like I say, I'm trying to give you a really hopefully a concise and engaging introduction to some of these ideas that can be a little tricky. Some of the stuff that you're going to read in Halsby might be a little bit beyond your kind of comfort zone. Some of the stuff I might even not ask you to read, but then my job is going to be to explain concepts like ideology and like mythology or whatever in ways that hopefully make sense. If they don't, by all means reach out. The point of this class is not to confuse you. It's to help immerse you into these ideas that have been kicking around for a very long time and are still very much relevant to the way we live our lives today. So there is the gist of Survey of Rhetorical Studies, COM 211. I think I've covered everything. My name is Donovan Connolly. I didn't really say much about myself, but I've been, in this department. I'm the most senior person in this department now. I've been around for about 20 years, and I teach rhetoric. I'm interested in culture stuff and rhetoric stuff. My work's getting interested in digital stuff, technology stuff. I've been the food guy for many years, and I'm still very interested in food, but this digital technological stuff seems even more pressing right now in a sad way. So that's where I'm living, and I hope everyone's well. Just to let you know, I will be traveling. I'll be abroad for the first 10 days of this class, so that's why I'm recording this stuff on June or July 3rd, so that I have it all ready to go for you guys when I'm gone. But I'm available. By all means, email, reach out. I will be here. I'm here for you, and I'm rooting for you, and I hope you have a good experience. It'll be quick. There's not many of us, but I do believe that this content is really engaging. I like it. I think it's fascinating. I think it's relevant and important, so I hope that you have a decent time working through it and learning some stuff about rhetoric. All right? There you go, gang. Happy 4th, which is tomorrow for me. When you get this, it'll be past the 4th, but anyway, happy 4th, and see you soon.